Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and in just a moment I'm going to be going into my team builder in battle for week 5 of UBL. Our opponent is Root, and his team is the NJ Brobats. We'll be going into all of that in just one moment. Before we do, I wanted to address something that I alluded to in my week 4 battle versus TheChoiceSpecs, and that is the fact that after that battle I decided to make a couple of changes to my team. These changes were not possible earlier in this season, but what happened was GarchompTheGod had to drop from UBL for some personal issues, and so his team was taken over by Skyrander. The team featured Seismitoad and Snorlax at the time, and so Skyrander decided to make some transactions to his team to make it more to his liking, and he ended up dropping the Seismitoad and the Snorlax. And so both of those Pokemon were ones that I really wanted in the draft. Seismitoad I even mentioned specifically in my draft analysis video as a Pokemon that I really wanted. It was a ground/water type that has Water Absorb, so it is able to deal with water types much better than Swampert can. Snorlax I don't think I mentioned specifically in my draft analysis video, but it's something that I've wanted to use for a very long time, and I thought that this would be a good draft to work with it. And so when I saw that those two Pokemon were available, I knew I had to snatch them up. And so the most natural Pokemon for me to drop to work with those two Pokemon were Swampert and Miltank. So Swampert being also a water ground type was obviously redundant once I had the Seismitoad. There are things that Swampert does better than Toad. It has better overall bulk, because its base stats are a little bit better. This is like 75 and 75 into its defensive special defense. This is 90 and 90. But it's a little bit slower. And it doesn't have as useful an ability. Like Water Absorb is a really nice ability. Makes it easier to deal with Pokemon like Suicune, anything that might want to run the Mono Scald, like Calm Mind Slowbro with Rest Talk, for example. So anything like that, Seismitoad helps deter. Swift Swim is worth mentioning too. You don't want to sleep on a Swift Swim Seismitoad. Say that one 5 times fast. So really like Seismitoad in the way that it supports the team. It has really good synergy with Ferrothorn and Togekiss. So I'm very happy about that. And then Miltank, being the normal type that I had on the team before, had to drop that to make room for the Snorlax. Not that Miltank wasn't useful, and it has some great utility that Snorlax does not have, like Rocks and T-Wave. It can run a Curse set as well, but it doesn't run Curse quite as well as Snorlax does, because of course Snorlax, it has the option to run Recycle if you want to run that sort of set with Curse. You can even run like Belly Drum Recycle, which is pretty nice. And it's got some great abilities. Like Thick Fat shares that ability with Miltank, so it can still be a good check to Fire and Ice types if needed. And then Gluttony really helps with those Recycle sets. So I quite like that. So Swampert was 100 points. Seismitoad was 80 points, so he gained 20 points there. Snorlax was 120 points, and Miltank was 60 points. So we used an extra 40 points there, which means that we are 20 points in the red. With that being said, we had to make another transaction on our teams, that way we could actually fit in our budget. And so the only way we could make that work, and I'm sorry to say that this was the case, was that we had to drop Electivire. Electivire is 60 points. And so we dropped from a 60-point electric type down to a 40-point being Ampharos. Now, I'm not all too disappointed about this. Ampharos I used in BBL Season 2. And I was very encouraged by how effective it was. It's very bulky. It doesn't have a great move pool, but has just the right kind of moves. So, Focus Blast, Dragon Pulse, etc. It can be pretty effective with an Assault Vest set. You can run it with a 50% berry. You can run with a Figgy Berry. Well, actually not Figgy Berry. A Guaf Berry, something like that. The only thing that stinks with Ampharos, or I guess the biggest thing that stinks, it's not the only thing that stinks, is that it doesn't have ability that makes it immune to electric type attacks like Electivire had. So Electivire having Motor Drive means it could switch in on T-Waves or Thunderbolts or whatever. Ampharos can't do that, it just resists it. I mean, it can still switch it on T-Wave and not get paralyzed, but it doesn't get the boost like Electivire does. But I felt comfortable enough versus Electrics that I thought it would be okay to pass up on that ability. I already have Ferrothorn, Swampert, and DrSlaking to be a very effective trio for dealing with electric types, so I didn't think I needed the extra boost from Ampharos. And there's some fun offensive sets of this that you can run, like Agility obviously is always an option. Cotton Guard is kind of cool. So yeah, with those changes to our team, I think we have a pretty good roster. Like, we had a good one before, but I really like the option for Water Absorb on Toad. I really like Snorlax to be a very threatening sweeper. Like, Snorlax is one of those mons that just forces prep. You know, it's a Pokemon like Suicune or like Reuniclus that you like have to specifically plan for in each game. Like Suicune, you have to have like Trick or Taunt or Roar or something like that in order to deal with its scary Rest Talk sets. Reuniclus, like you have to have a Dark type on your team that's able to rip through, or like a powerful Bug type like Scizor or something like that. Otherwise, it can deal with your team. And like, if you're going to be facing a Pokemon like Reuniclus, you have to have a Dark type on your roster to begin with, because then it could run like Iron Defense if you don't have a Dark type attacker for it. Because, you know, if you give that for a free move slot where it doesn't have to run Focus Blast or something to hit your Dark type, it can then run that Iron Defense. So Snorlax is another Pokemon like that, which I think forces prep, where they have to bring their fighting type, and it like has to have a way to deal with a boosted Snorlax. So like if you're going up against Terrakion, it has to run Sacred Sword. So things like that. I really like how restrictive it is what I'm trying to say. So overall, I do like the changes that we've made to this team. Okay, so now that that's explained, now we can actually go on into our team builder here. So as I mentioned, we're going up against Root is NJ Brobats, and his team is, as you see on the screen, he has Noivern, Raikou, Perugly, Nihilego, Necrozma, Serena, Clefable, Azumarill, Registeel, Spiritomb, and Mega Camerupt. So it's funny how I was just kind of talking about Snorlax and how it forces certain prep. You know, your opponent has to bring a fighting type and it has to have like a way to sort of break through a boosting Snorlax. Up to week 4, Root actually had Kelly on his team over Azumarill, but he made a transaction to get the Azumarill on his team, and that leaves him without a fighting type. And so that does make my team with my Snorlax apply a lot of pressure to his. It's going to be hard for him to break my Snorlax. I'm not bringing a setup set though. I'll explain why I brought the set that I brought in just a moment. He does have a Dark type, you know, so that kind of deters some of my other Pokemon like Gengar and Mew. I was trying to exploit in the week 4 game the fact that my opponent, TheChoiceSpecs, for that week had no Dark type, but didn't quite work out. Here he is. Root has Spiritomb to try and deal with those two Pokemon. But you know, the nice thing is that I can still try and break through that Pokemon with like Gengar at least, just because it doesn't actually resist the Ghost type move. But maybe he'll run like a Bulky Set or Assault Vest or something like that to be able to switch in very easily, take like a Shadow Ball plus a Never Ending Nightmare, and then be able to Pursuit Trap me or something like that. So I am very aware of the risk of that. Like the overall assessment of Root's team is just how bulky it is. Like Necrozma, Clefable, Registeel, all so bulky. Very, very hard to break down. They all have scary setup options. Like even Registeel has like Curse, which can be annoying. And then like Clefable, you can't status it, so you have to try and break it down in other ways. Necrozma has 1,000 different setup sets that it can run. You know, it's a good bulky Pokemon too. Like he could bring it defensively to like try and deal with Blaziken or something like that. Or Aerodactyl. Like Aerodactyl doesn't have a really awesome way to hit it super effectively. So that's something that I'm like most concerned about. And then just like in general, his team is pretty bulky. Like Raikou, Serena, Azumarill, all fat Pokemon that can take a hit, even if they're like more offensive oriented than like Necrozma or Clefable or Registeel. So our team is kind of built to deal with some of the bulky options that he could bring. So yeah, without further ado, let's now go on into our team builder here. So we do have just a classic Gengar with Life Orb and 4 attacks. And so I did want to potentially bring ChoiceSpecs on this thing, but I feel like Life Orb makes it just a little bit better as a wall breaker. You give up a tiny bit of power, but you have the option to switch up moves. So I can hit like Registeel, for example, with a combination of Shadow Ball plus Focus Blast to do a tremendous amount of damage to it. Sludge Wave hits the Serena, it hits the Clefable. Like Clefable can't Calm Mind on this. I've seen games in the past where Root tries to set up with bulky Pokemon versus a Pokemon that has Stab super effective for it. So I wouldn't put it past him to think, oh, well, I can just use my Clefable's natural bulk to set up on Gengar. Well, nope. I have Life Orb, Sludge Wave. I'd easily even if he's at +1, like me hitting a Clefable with a Sludge Wave as it has +1, and then if it boosts to +2, we should still two-shot it because of that bulk. Yeah, so just a very, very scary wall breaker for him in this game. Didn't need to go max speed, just nearly max speed. I think this is enough speed for, what does he have? For Nihilego, so this is enough for Nihilego. Yeah, so very, very good wall breaker versus him in this game. Another pretty good wall breaker is the Life Orb Sneasel. And so we just have 3 attacks plus, well, I guess it's 4 attacks, one of which is Ice Shard. Like, it's weird. Like, Ice Shard obviously is an attacking move, but I think of it as more of a utility move. Like, most priority options, I think of more as utility moves than attacking moves. So it's not like they do a ton of damage unless it's versus something like a Zygarde 10% or, like, something that doesn't have a ton of bulk and you can one-shot. So yeah, that's why I was like 3 attacks plus Ice Shard. But yeah, obviously it is actually 3 attacks. Yeah, it just shreds his whole team. Like, Knockoff does good damage to Necrozma. Poison Jab is great for Clefable. Low Kick for Registeel. Like, the Ice priority, so going for Ice Shard over Icicle Crash, that was the choice. That way I could hit Noivern, which does outspeed me, but is 4x weak to Ice Shard. And then, like, passing up on Icicle Crash wasn't all too bad. Like, the only thing that it would have been kind of nice for is this Pokemon for Serena. But I'm already running Poison Jab, so I already do a decent amount of damage to that. And, like, the Poison Jab, like I said, already covers the Clefable and the Azumarill. So it seemed worth it. The only Pokemon that I'm missing a little bit of damage on, I guess you could say, is Spiritomb. But Knockoff does just as much to Spiritomb as long as it still has an item. So that's pretty nice. And then, yeah, I guess just Camerupt can kind of switch in. But, you know, because Ice Shard hits it, or Icicle Crash hits it neutrally, and Knockoff doesn't do as much damage, but Camerupt is Camerupt. I don't know that it's going to come in this game. So yeah, just enough speed on this thing to speed tie with his base 115, which is his Raikou. So yeah, I like both of these Pokemon as offensive breakers this game. Then we have a Chople Berry Ferrothorn, Spikes, Leech Seed, Power Whip, and Iron Head. So I really wanted Chople Berry Ferrothorn to protect myself from Belly Drum Azumarill, because that's a really scary Pokemon in this game. You can never sleep on Belly Drum Azumarill. So Power Whip hits that thing pretty hard. We have Iron Head over Gyro Ball because we are not actually running 0 speed. We're running just a tiny bit of speed investment for Mega Camel. Not that we can hit Mega Camel with an extremely hard move. Like, we can hit with Power Whip for, like, probably 30% or something like that at best. But if in case we want to, like, set up a Last-Ditch Spikes or a Last-Ditch Leech Seed or something like that, it seemed worth it just to put a tiny bit of speed into here so that way we wouldn't be speed crept. Yeah, it's, like, useful versus the team otherwise. Switches in pretty well to, like, Serena can take hits from Raikou if it's not packing Aura Sphere. If it is packing Aura Sphere, we do have Chople Berry, so there you go. That's pretty nice. Next, we have a offensive variant of Seismitoad. It's offensive, but still is relatively bulky. So we put enough speed onto this thing so that way we can outspeed, I believe, a Jolly Azumarill. So if he's Jolly Azumarill, he has to be by 1 point. And he can't go for Aqua Jet versus us because we do have Water Absorb. So we should have a way to give ourselves at least 1 hit on a Azumarill. If he is like a max speed variant, that's going to work out best for us. This Poison Jab should do enough damage to take out a Azumarill after the Belly Drum, and assuming that it has no bulk investment. I'm not sure if I need a round of rocks or not. I can't actually remember because I built for this so long ago. But yeah, Poison Jab for that. Scald is here for Mega Camel. Like, I didn't even need any attack investment for Scald to do a ton of damage to that thing. And I don't really need Scald for anything else that's on the team. Earthquake gives me good coverage for Raikou, Nihilego, Registeel, and stuff like that. And the Rindo Berry that I have on here is just good as a backup option for Nihilego, because that does get Grass Knot. It would do a pretty good amount of damage to us. And same for, like, Raikou with HP Grass. Like, if he were to do, like, Electric Move plus HP Grass plus Aura Sphere, that hits pretty much my whole team. Like, Druddigon is kind of the exception, but Druddigon's not that bulky on the special side if I don't invest into it. So yeah, this is my other countermeasure for Azumarill, but it's also just good in general versus his team because he has a hard time killing it. So yeah, the speed is for what I mentioned with Azumarill, the attack. Then I have a set of Snorlax with Figgy Berry, with Recycle, Whirlwind, Toxic, and Facade. So this set I thought was actually really important to bring for all the setup sweepers that I mentioned. So if he wants to bring like Calm Mind Clefable or Calm Mind or Rock Polish or whatever on his Necrozma, I wanted a way to phase those Pokemon out. And so Snorlax was my choice for that. Recycle gives me a good amount of survivability. It's going to be hard for him to kill this Pokemon when I have the ability to heal up basically every turn. Toxic is there because I don't have a move on this Pokemon to deal with something like Spiritomb particularly well. So I can hit that. And then my last move slot is Facade. I like Facade because if I do switch in on, say, like a Will-O-Wisp from Spiritomb or something like that, I'm not neutered by it. And then I don't really like need the extra damage boost from something like Return, assuming that I am not statused. Like with the attack investment that I have here, like we are Adamant Nature with a lot of attack investment. So definitely planning to do some damage with this Pokemon. We can two-shot a Noivern after Rocks without any status on us. With a status on us, we do one-shot a Noivern. And then there with the HP and bulk investment overall, we should be able to take easily Hurricanes from Noivern. We should even be able to take like Earth Power from what's it called, Camerupt. Like Fire Blast is going to do a lot more damage, but I don't think Fire Blast one shot still. I don't know if we like take two. That would just be one thing I'd have to look into. But yeah, Snorlax, it's kind of a safety net in this game for the setup sweepers most of all. Then last but not least, pretty basic Mew set, rocking with Spadef, just so we have good switch-ins to like kind of his scariest Pokemon like Camel, Clefable, Necrozma, Raikou, even Noivern to an extent. Yeah, and Taunt Roost, just with like how bulky his team is, Taunt Roost beats almost everything. Like the only thing that it doesn't beat, like I guess it's the things that that outspeed me. Like so if he's toxic on Raikou, like if he's like sub-toxic protect Raikou, we can't really stop that. Or same with like Noivern or something like that. But otherwise, like we taunt everything that's across the speed tier and lower and prevent it from being annoying. And then we can break the Pokemon down very easily with Super Fang. So like Registeel is not a good switch into this. Necrozma is not a good switch into this because we can Super Fang them down, taunt them, preventing them from going for recovery, get to the point where they eventually die to Side Shot. And they have no way to really retaliate versus our Mew. So yeah, I think this is probably the best matchup for Taunt Roost Mew that we've had so far this season. Just because, yeah, like Root clearly tried to draft like a like really hard to break team. It's not a stall team. I'm not saying that. But like this is a team that you have to really chip down. And so I think like Mew with the Taunt Roost, like Ferrothorn with the spikes, Rocks on Seismitoad. And then like I really like the option of like Spikes plus Stealth Rock plus Whirlwind on Snorlax. I think there's a lot of good synergy there. I can phase his team around and get residual damage and get to the point where I can sweep with like a Gengar or a Sneasel in the late game. I think it's a really good game plan. Okay, so with all that said, now we can actually hop on into the battle. So if you've been sticking with me for this long, thanks so much. If you're just arriving, I hopefully put a timestamp to this point where you could just join the battle. Thank you very much for watching so far. Root has decided to bring Necrozma, Raikou, Registeel, Nihilego, Azumarill, and Spiritomb. So relieved not to see a couple of Pokemon for sure. Like no Clefable is awesome. Clefable is really scary. No Mega Camel. I wasn't necessarily expecting Mega Camel, but like it just is impossible to switch into. So that was worth noting. Otherwise, yeah, it's like what I was expecting for the most part. Like Raikou, Necrozma, Azumarill, all definitely big threats. Registeel makes sense as a switch into my Mega Aerodactyl. Of course, I've benched it, as you can see. But you know, he didn't know if that was going to bring that. And it's also like his only, like, I guess like Spiritomb is also a good normal resist, but like it's his, otherwise his normal resist. So, I decided that I want to lead with Ferrothorn here. Ferrothorn seemed like a decent lead if he wants to lead with something like Nihilego or Raikou. Like Nihilego kind of makes sense if he wants to try and set up like early Rocks or T-Spikes. Raikou, like it just if he wants to kind of scout and click Volt Switch, is pretty good. He doesn't have a Grass type on his team like that he's brought here, So unless you sap Super Azumarill, I can pretty easily like launch off a Leech Seed and like scout what he wants to do and make an appropriate switch after that. And if he wants to lead with something that like wants to substitute or do anything cheeky, I do have the Snorlax in the back to protect myself. So we're going to leave a Ferrothorn. We're not going to waste any more time. We're going to hit play and get on into this game versus Root. Good luck, have fun. Root and I last played in the MPL playoffs. That was the second time that we battled in MPL that season. He whipped me earlier in the season with a Swords Dance Decidueye, but I was able to get the last laugh on him in our playoffs game. That's what helped us get to semifinals and eventually finals of MPL. So Root is definitely out for some revenge. It was a bulk up Hawlucha that ended up doing him in an MPL. So yeah, he's definitely got that ingrained in his mind. So he does leave with Necrozma, and so I decided just to throw off a Spikes, just because if he does choose to sub, which is what he's done here, Spikes still gives me a little bit of like an effect for that turn. Like if I had tried to Leech Seed, like I had said, it wouldn't have been effective at all because, you know, the substitute would have prevented the Leech Seed. And so he's obviously going to try and set up here. And so I'm going to take this as an opportunity to go into my Snorlax and just Whirlwind him on out of here. Not super bulky, especially on the special side this week. But thankfully Snorlax just has a lot of natural bulk. It's going to be able to take this Photon Geyser without too much pain. So he is going to fire off the Photon Geyser. Does like 40%. Like, yes, it's not great, but like I said, it's not going to ruin our Snorlax too badly. So we'll Whirlwind that thing out, and we are going to invite in the Raikou. And so, yeah, like Raikou isn't going to be able to do too much here, unless he has like Aura Sphere or something. I think I even live at Aura Sphere, so I'm pretty sure I just stay in and click Recycle. And he's going to hit me with a T-Bolt, and he's actually going to get a Paralysis on me. So it seems very small, just a Snorlax getting paralyzed. It doesn't have a lot of speed anyway, so like who cares? Oh, I do Toxic the Raikou. I don't go for Recycle yet. You know, Snorlax doesn't need its speed for anything, but the major problem here for Root is that because I am paralyzed, I cannot get Toxiced. And he has no super effective stab for dealing with this thing. So all of a sudden, like, yeah, Snorlax was, like, you know, annoying Pokemon in general, but the fact that now he can't wear me down with status means that the Snorlax is pretty close to unbreakable for him. And he does have some, like, normal resist, right? He has this Registeel, he has Spiritomb, but neither of those Pokemon can, like, break through Snorlax with Recycle and with the Figgy Berry. So he's going to come in here, set up his rocks. I tried to get the Recycle off on the first turn, but I did get fully paralyzed. I Recycle on the second turn, and I'm going to be able to get up to a full amount of HP. So I am at full HP, but I still need my berry, so I'm going to spend the next few turns trying to get off my Recycle here, so that way I have berry in hand. Like, I will say, like, so the paralysis, it is largely good for me, like, largely great for me, because he can't really break me down with, like, status and stuff like that. But paralysis is, like, a little bit annoying. I would have kind of preferred, like, a burn if you were to, like, obviously I'm happy with either when compared to getting Toxicked. But a burn would have been slightly better, because even if I took that residual damage, at least I know for sure that I'm going to be able to get off my move every time. But because of the paralysis, I'm trying to be extra cautious and make sure that I, like, have the most amount of survivability possible. So, like, here you can see I just got paralyzed once again. Like, I don't want to find myself in a situation where it's like, okay, I need to break through paralysis here in order to live. I want to make sure I'm always as healthy as possible and that I have my berry intact if I can. Because that gives me the best chance of surviving versus this whole team. And so, yeah, I, like, because of that, like, I play extra conservatively, and I spend even fewer turns, like, clicking attacking moves. So I do go for a Whirlwind versus the Registeel, and I get the Nihilego in, which actually isn't that bad for me. Like, Nihilego, he does show its Life Orb, so it's pretty attack invested, able to do a decent bit of damage, but just because it doesn't have a super effective move for Snorlax means that he basically can't kill me. And so I do go for, I do get my Figgy Berry off to get up to a full amount of HP. I clicked Recycle, and he's going to go for a T-Spikes. T-Spikes are definitely potentially annoying in this game because I have a few Pokemon that don't want to get poisoned. But the main one that I didn't want to get poisoned was Snorlax, and as we've been discussing, I'm already paralyzed. So basically, if I can find a way to get Gengar in and absorb those T-Spikes, that'll be really nice for me. In the meantime, I do finally have a good amount of HP plus my berry intact. So I'm going to throw off a Facade and do like 60% damage to this Nihilego. That's really nice, showing you the power of Snorlax, which is really, really great. I figured he'd go for another Power Gem. So I'm pretty sure... no, I just Whirlwind. So I get this thing out. The nice thing is that because I do have up the Spike, that he is going to die upon re-entry to that Spike. So I felt pretty comfortable going for the Whirlwind there. Unfortunately, get the Registeel in, which is a Pokemon that I can't really threaten that much offensively. But again, Registeel can't do that much to me either. Spend the next several turns trying to get my HP back and to get my berry back. And so we do click the Recycle. And that is going to give me my berry once again. Yeah, and you guys can get a little bit of a sense for how this match is looking. Snorlax doesn't have a great way to beat the Registeel, but I should win out with time because I have recovery and he does not. Like, he just has leftovers. So it might take a while. And then the same is going to be true for the Spirit Tomb that's in the back. I don't have a way to do like a tremendous amount of damage to it, but I do have Substitute. So as long as he is not like, I have Toxic to hit it. So as long as he's not Substitute, I can Toxic it and then eventually just stall it out with Recycles. And, and going into this game, this wasn't at all my plan to just sit with a Snorlax here. The Toxic made sense to hit Spirit Tomb, which would be a good potential switch into the Snorlax, and then the Whirlwind made sense to deal with all of his setup mons. Like, it already came in handy once in this match for dealing with the Necrozma. But anyway, I make a play here. I switch out of my Snorlax because I do recognize that this is effectively a stalemate, even though I think I win out in the long run. And so I decided to go into my Mew because Mew can like taunt and Super Fang this thing down and beat it a little bit more easily. This was probably a mistake. I should have actually gone into Gengar. And so at this point, we've seen Seismic Toss, Stealth Rock on this Pokemon. I don't know if it's been revealed up to this point in the game or not, but he does have Protect on this Pokemon as well. And then I'm pretty sure his last move slot is Toxic. So basically, what I'm trying to point out here is that he has no way to touch Gengar whatsoever. And so I should have gone into Gengar, absorbed the T-Spikes, and then threatened this thing with a Ghost-type move. Or Focus Blast or whatever I choose to pick. But I go into Mew instead, and yeah, I think that was a misplay in the long run. But here I am. So anyway, I finally get up to a decent amount of HP, and I click Super Fang trying to hit that Registeel. He goes into his Necrozma instead. And so I'm happy to do a tremendous amount of damage to that thing, probably like 40% or so, considering where he started in terms of his HP. I'm just going to throw off a Taunt versus this thing. This thing is already shown to be a Subcalm mindset. I don't want to mess around with any of that. We're just going to Taunt this right away and prevent it from its shenanigans. And so that's exactly what happens. We prevent it from substituting. This thing has no way to damage me otherwise. I wonder what his move slots are. So we've seen Subcall Mind, Photon Geyser. Like, what's his last move slot? I'm not actually sure. I don't think we shared teams after the battle. I don't know if it's Moonlight or if it was another attacking move like Signal Beam or something like that. Like, Signal Beam would be pretty good for hitting both my Mew and my Sneasel. But we didn't. That ended up not happening. That last move ended up not being revealed in this game. So anyway, he can't do anything to me. I'm just going to Roost Up, get to max HP, and he's going to make a nice switch on into his Spirit Tomb. And so, Spirit Tomb actually is a bit of a problem for me. Because I didn't bring Togekiss, I don't have a way to hit it like extremely hard. And so funny enough, my best way to hit it is actually to go into my Snorlax and try and throw off a Toxic versus it. So I do that. He throws off the Dark Pulse, doesn't do very much damage, shows the leftovers. So I'm going to try and land the Toxic on this thing. But he does have the switch into the Registeel in the back. And that is what he's going to do here, going into the Registeel and basically dodge the Toxic. So yeah, we're kind of back to where we were a few moments ago. I tried to mix it up. I went into the Mew, and even that was a misplay. I shouldn't have done that. Probably the best thing overall would have been to stay in with Snorlax and just like see how long we could draw this out. But I went into Mew to try and break the stalemate. But even despite those efforts, we are kind of back in the stalemate situation. So I whirlwind the Registeel out because I can't do much to it. Get the Spirit Tomb in once again. And this thing is now in here versus me. It can't hurt me. I just need to land a Toxic on it. And I don't know exactly what happens on this turn. Yeah, this is the turn he forfeits. Okay. So, if I were in Root's position, I would probably end up feeling the same way. He knew that the moment he landed that paralysis on my Snorlax, that he wasn't going to be able to break it. Basically, his best bet was to try and PP stall my recycles and make it so that way I can no longer recover, and then he could finally start to wear down my team. That was going to take the whole hour. Like, we were already probably 30 minutes or 25 minutes into this game at this point. And it was looking like, yeah, really hard to break through my Snorlax. And so Root, again, I don't blame him. He said, screw it, I'm forfeiting. You get the win. And so none of the Pokemon on my side of the field went down, so it's going to be a 6-0. I don't think he, like, if he could have stalled out my Snorlax, I don't think he was guaranteed to win by any means. I just needed to wear down his team enough to the point where, like, Gengar and Sneasel could clean up. I think that would have been pretty easy to accomplish. But, like, I understand him, sort of feeling helpless and also just, like, kind of, like, frustrated and bored with that Snorlax sitting out in front of him. So I think the way that it was scored was that Snorlax got 6 kills. I think technically it should probably be awarded 5 kills instead of 6, with the 6th kill going to Ferrothorn because it would have gotten a hazard kill on the Nihilego. But that's semantics. The specifics of it doesn't really matter. I'm just happy that the game is a W. And the fact that it's 6-0, like, I feel bad because, like, Root's a good guy and, like, I wasn't trying to stall him out. Like, I think the Whirlwind and the Toxic and everything had, like, good purpose on Snorlax. But it wasn't going to... It was an unwinnable situation for him. And, like, yeah, for him to even have gotten 1 kill there would have been hard. And so, yeah, I don't wish that upon him, but in terms of our season, it's very helpful because we were 1-3 coming into this game. Now we are 2-3, and that +6 victory really helps boost our differential. It sort of mitigates the tough losses that we took versus Dyeittight and versus TheChoiceSpecs. And so we're not quite back to where we want to be yet. I really like to be above 500. We are on our way to that. We'll first hopefully get to an equal 500 winning percentage next week versus AutoMatthic. But we'll have to see how that goes. AutoMatthic has a very good team. And he's actually, not even just in terms of the battling, but in terms of clout and YouTube, he's on quite a winning streak, you could say, just being added to WBE to take over for the Heated Mo. So I think that's really awesome for him. He totally deserves it with the amount of hard work that he's putting into UBL, into MPL, into his website and everything like that. Like, he is such a highly valued member of the community. So all the success that he sees, he deserves. But that doesn't mean I won't try to beat him. Like, we are going to give him our best shot in the next game. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. And yeah, I'm going to do my best to not repeat what we did this week. I mean, like, please understand, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. But hopefully my strategies don't revolve around relying on a paralyzed Snorlax to win the game. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching and bearing with me. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you check out the channel for all the other gaming and Pokemon content. And until the next time, I'll see you guys later.